Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team. Now, let's get into the news. The night the Detroit Lions sealed their pact with T.J. Hockenson, the city didn't roar, it trembled. Something in the air shifted, like a door opening somewhere deep beneath the stadium, releasing a draft that tasted of metal and memory. Detroit had grown used to rebuilding seasons, used to fresh promises laid over old wounds. But this felt different from the start, not hopeful, not triumphant, but heavy, ritualistic. As if this wasn't a signing but an awakening, reporters framed the moment as a calculated move. A strategic decision to give Jared Goff a reliable target. A weapon forged in yards after catch potential and red zone dominance, but those who paid attention, who studied the angles of the press conference and rewound the footage late into the night, saw something else, a flicker in the lights above the podium, a shadow that shouldn't have been there. The slightest hesitation before Hockenson shook hands with the front office. As if forces unseen were aligning around him, they spoke of chemistry and offensive cohesion. Yet no one could explain why the temperature in the room dropped the instant the contract was signed. Fans told themselves it was excitement. Deep down, they knew better. There was an undercurrent. A pull. Some strange gravity drawing player and quarterback closer than strategy ever could, coaches said. Goff simply needed consistency. Analysts said Hockenson offered exactly that. But the late-night whispers painted a different picture, one of inevitability. Of the paths merging because something old and restless demanded it. Practices became strange. Footsteps echoed long after the facility emptied. Hockenson's locker door creaked open on its own. Assistants swore they heard murmurs from the indoor field, like someone calling plays to an invisible audience. When Goff and Hockenson worked alone under the dim lights, their movements synced too easily to perfectly as though they weren't learning routes, but remembering them. The duo's growing connection began to take on a rhythm, a pulse that beat at the center of every drill. Those who watched from the catwalks above the field felt the hair on their arms rise, sensing a presence walking with them, guiding them. And although the front office dismissed this atmosphere as superstition, a city hungry for hope couldn't ignore the slow, creeping tension. The Lions weren't just assembling a roster, they were awakening something. Something that recognized Goff and Hockenson as the ideal conduits for whatever dream or nightmare Detroit had been holding at bay for decades. As the days shortened and the season drew near, the bond between the two men intensified, as if shaped by hands no one could see, even from afar. Their silhouettes moved like they belonged to the same shadow. Fans looking through the glass windows into the practice facility at night reported glimpsing moments that didn't feel meant for human eyes. Balls thrown before Goff even planted his feet. Hockenson turning his head a heartbeat before the spiral cut through the air. Roots bending like they obeyed laws other than physics, and always, somewhere deep in those moments, a presence lingered, watching, waiting, coiling itself around the pair like a silent decree carved into fate the moment the deal was struck. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update. And you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. By the time preseason arrived, excitement had curdled into fascination, and fascination into unease. People who worked the sidelines complained of cold spots on the field. Equipment crew found Hockenson's gloves warm to the touch even when sitting untouched for hours, as though retaining the echo of a grip that hadn't yet happened. Cameras captured distortions again, brief, grainy smears that technicians blamed on faulty sensors. Though privately some admitted that the glitches only appeared when Goff and Hockenson stood close to each other. The quarterback's demeanor shifted day by day. His calm, collected cadence turned disjointed, clipped, protective, like a man holding a secret he didn't fully understand. During interviews, he paused mid-sentence, gaze drifting to corners of the room where no one stood, as if listening to instructions whispered from a place just beyond perception. And Hockenson, once soft-spoken and reserved, began carrying himself with the unsettling composure of someone guided by certainty not earned, but bestowed. When the first preseason game arrived, Detroit buzzed with anticipation masked as hope. But beneath that thin veneer lay an undercurrent of dread no one dared articulate. Goff's passes, to Hockenson, were to precise, to synchronized, unfolding like choreography learned in a dream. Defenders trying to cover him described a sinking feeling, a pressure behind the ribs, as though something invisible weighed down their lungs when they lined up across from him. Fans watching from home described chills that weren't tied to the score. They couldn't explain the way shadows around Hockenson seemed to long under the stadium lights, or how Goff hesitated before each snap, staring at the tight end not with the confidence of a quarterback trusting his target, but with the resignation of someone fulfilling an order. And when the regular season began, that eerie undertow only deepened. In their first televised primetime matchup, millions witnessed what Detroit had already begun to fear. Goff looked at Hockenson before the play, a look not of strategy nor communication, but surrender. The ball left his hands like he had no alternative. Hockenson split through defenders as if moving through water, while the rest of the world dragged. In slow motion, commentators tried to explain it with mechanics, footwork, offensive schematics. But the audience felt the truth in their bones. Something else was running the show. Something had chosen Detroit, chosen Goff, chosen Hockenson, and now guided each play with an unseen hand. The roar of the stadium felt hollow, swallowed by the presence that filled the air. From that night forward, every snap, every route, every touchdown carried that same unnatural rhythm, a pattern repeating itself with growing intensity. And as the season spiraled deeper into this strange momentum, one truth became unavoidable. The Lions hadn't simply closed a deal with T.J. Hockenson. They had entered a pact, a binding, unspoken covenant that tied quarterback and tight end to a force beyond their understanding. Goff's target was defined not by playbooks or coaching schemes, but by something that had awakened the moment pen touched paper. And now, every time the stadium lights dimmed, every time the ball spiraled from Goff's hands into Hockenson's waiting grasp, Detroit felt the same cold certainty. This was no longer just football. This was destiny, tightening its grip. And whatever had chosen to work through these two men wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.